home stretch, and I want to go ahead and finish strong. So we've got a basically functioning game now where we can fly our ship, we can shoot asteroids, our ship teleports, and when we make contact with the asteroids, we explode. But let's make this a little bit more game-like, and let's add a title screen, and let's go ahead and talk about adding a game over screen. And we'll hop right in. I'm back in Scratch. I have selected the stage here, and the stage, like anything else, has different costumes, but for the stage, they're called backdrops. We already have the one backdrop that we created in GIMP, or perhaps you're using one that Scratch pre-made for you. But either way, we're going to go ahead and add another one. You can add another one from GIMP's library. You could actually go ahead and add a second copy of the one you created. I happen to have made a second one because I did this a couple of times. So you're welcome to go back to the video and recreate a separate space scene that's a little bit different, so you can have a little bit of variety in your backdrops. Mine's called Nebula, so I'm going to go ahead and add that. Either way, add a second backdrop, whether it's the same or different. And we're going to get sort of a copy of it over here, and you're going to notice that right now it's in bitmap mode. And I'm not going to go too deeply into what bitmap versus vector is. I'll say this. Bitmap means that the image is made up of pixels, little teeny tiny squares that if we were to zoom way in, we'd start to see them. A vector image is made a little bit differently, and it's made of lines. The great benefit to vector images is that you can make them bigger and smaller without changing them. If you take a bitmap image that's kind of small and you zoom way in or you make it much bigger, it gets really grainy and pixelated and hard to see. So we're going to go ahead and switch our image over to vector by clicking on Convert to Vector. And this is going to take a few seconds. And you'll know it's ready once these tools pop up. And so for this, what I'm going to do mainly is I'm going to use the text tools. So I'm going to click on the text tool. I'm going to click up here, and I'm going to give my game a title. I'm not exactly sure why, but I've noticed that when I'm doing this inside of Scratch, it actually goes pretty slow. So just bear with it. You might type things. I just typed the letter CH, and now I've removed my fingers, and it took about 3 seconds to pop up. So just bear with it. If you try and sort of force it and keep going, there's a chance that Scratch will crash. So just be patient. Okay, so I've got my title. I'm going to go ahead and select the text. For my particular space scene, I think changing the text to white by clicking down here on the little white palette will look better. I'm going to select it again, and I'm going to change the font. You've got a few choices. I'm going to go ahead and use the Scratch font, and I'm going to grab the Select tool in the top right-hand corner, and that will allow me to select this. I can grab the bottom right corner, I can make it larger, and it will allow me to move it to the center. So that's fine. I'm going to go ahead, and while I'm here, I'm going to add a second text box that tells the player what they need to do in order to enter the game. I'm going to pause the video really briefly because, as you can see, this is going kind of slow. I'll be right back. So here I am. I have added the text, press any key to play. You can substitute any key for spacebar or a certain letter. You don't have the option of using the enter key for some reason. I'm not sure why. So don't write press enter to play. And so that's how you make sort of your title screen. I'm going to pause the video once again, and I'm going to make a game over screen in much the same fashion. I'm going to import another backdrop. It'll probably be the same one as this, and I'll put the words game over across the screen, and that'll come into play probably in the next video when we learn how to actually end the game. So I'll be right back. To simplify things, I actually just right-clicked on Nebula and I duplicated it. It allowed me just to change the word Scratch Steroids to the word game over. I kept the words press any key to play because we'll program it so that on the game over screen you could press any key and go back into the game. At the moment, I'm going to go ahead and push ahead. So I'm over here. I have the stage selected, and just like if it were a sprite, the stage has room for scripts. And so we're going to write some scripts for the stage that tell it how things should go. So what we're going to do is when the green flag is clicked, we are going to go to looks, and we're going to say switch backdrop to, and I happen to know that Nebula is my title screen. So you'll see that happened when I pressed the green flag, but the game also started. And that's because if we think, I have this when green flag is clicked several times throughout the game. And so basically all of these things happened when I pressed the green flag, not just going to the title screen. So we're going to have to figure out how to change these so that they only happen once we enter the game. But before that, we need to make it so when we press any key, we actually enter the game stage. So let's go ahead and grab a forever block. And we will say, actually inside the forever block, we'll need an if then. So forever, if a key is pressed, we'll change the parameter from space to any. So if any key is pressed, we need something to happen. And that's we need to switch the backdrop again. So we'll switch backdrop to, mine happens to be called space. So let's try that. So we'll press the green flag. If I press any key, it does change. Now, the next problem is that the game is still loading on the title screen, which is not what we want. So let's go ahead and fix that. So as I pointed out, the issue is that we have a lot of these blocks that we used, which were very convenient up until now, that when we press the green flag, all of these different things would happen. We have it on the player sprite, we have them on the bullet sprite, we have them on the large asteroid sprite, and we even have them on the explosion sprite. So basically what I need to do is replace those with a different block, because I don't want them to happen when the green flag is clicked. Rather, I want them to happen, I'm in the events category here, when the backdrop switches, and I know mine is to the space backdrop. So I'll just go ahead and attach, actually, I won't attach that yet because I'm going to duplicate it a bunch of times. I'll go ahead and attach those. I'll go ahead and lose these. And actually, if you right click on this area and do cleanup, it'll actually clean up for you kind of nicely. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to pause the video, and I'm going to change all of the when the green flag is clicked to when the backdrop switches, and I'll be right back. So if you followed along and you've changed all of your when the green flag is checked blocks to these, then it almost works right. So I press the green flag, I press any key, and if you're like me, what's happening is you're getting this weird sort of glitchy, and what's happening is that once the game starts, it's still seeing this thing that says forever, if a key is pressed, switch to space. So it switches back to space, it makes more asteroids, and it just sort of compounds on itself until it sort of just dies. So I've been playing around with possible solutions, and the best one I've found so far is to go ahead and remove that. We're back on the stage, in the scripts area, and I'm going to change it so that when space is pressed, and we'll change that to any, then we'll switch backdrop to space. And let's see how that works. Alright, and once again what's happening is I'm pressing the space bar now to shoot, and it's still reading this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the key to A, which is a key that's not otherwise used in the game. I'll press the green flag, and I'll press the A key, and now I can go about and the game loads regularly. And I have no other reason to press the A key other than to reset the game. So that's the solution I've found. I'm sure there are other ways to sort of fix this particular glitch. So I'm sure if you spend a few minutes, you could probably figure one out on your own. So of course, one thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and change our title screen. So instead of saying any key, I'm going to say press the A key to play, and that'll work just fine. So in our next video, and probably the last of the original series, we're going to go ahead and do things like add score and add a number of lives, and that will be when we sort of program in triggering the game over stage backdrop that we have created. So at that point, we'll be pretty much done, and I'll see you then.